decision.
Lena, lovely to see you. Thank you for coming into the studio again. Nice to get your thoughts. So how will this extended truce affect Israel's military operation? Clearly there are risks from their perspective. It gives more time to Hamas to reorganise and regroup. And if hostages are coming out, then clearly, as Lena says, it increases the pressure to give this more time. There will be concerns in Jerusalem that they're being slow-walked into a truce that drags on indefinitely. So let's pick up on that theme with Dr. Michele Groppi. He's a lecturer in the Defence Studies Department at King's College London. We talked about the 4 days of this agreement, and the Israeli Defence Forces said that was giving them time to prepare, to train, and to look again at what the objectives were. Do you think they're in a better position now for the second half of this military campaign, or in a worse position?
Thank you for the question. I do think they are in a better position. But in order to understand this, we have to take one step back. Israel has been more divided than ever, even before the 7 October attacks. And therefore, there has been a lot of pressure on Netanyahu, not just to uproot Hamas, but to bring the hostages home. However, when hostilities started on the Israeli side, there was no room, obviously, according to the IDF, for ceasefire, for negotiations. Right now that they have secured virtually most of the northern part of the Gaza Strip, they are in a much better position, tactically speaking. They can wait. Tactically speaking, they can hope for the release of hostages. And then once they are released, unfortunately, hostilities will continue. So tactically speaking, it's not going to change much. The Israelis will have to go down south. Politically, however, it changes a lot.
But that operation in the south is going to be far more complex, because clearly they can't just drop bombs, Michele, in the way they did in the first half of this conflict. They're going to have to move among highly populated areas to try and find these Hamas fighters. And of course, the more they engage these fighters, the greater the risk is to the hostages.
I'm very worried. It's going to be even worse than what we have seen in the north. And it's because of the terrain, it's because of the Hamas tactics, and it is because Israel does not have the same knowledge that arguably they were able to exploit in the north. And as civilian casualties going to rise, I'm also afraid that as for the hostages, it's not going to look good. But hopefully human intelligence here is also very, very important. So even according to my connections, my personal connections in the IDF, I know that they're using drones. I know that they're using all sorts of technology, but also the human intelligence of a pretty worn out civilian population, which may turn against Hamas, or at least this is the ration.
They did say today as well that they were taking intelligence from those who've returned on what they'd seen, where they were kept, and how they were kept. What about the Hamas fighters? Clearly they have had time, aside from gathering information on where all these hostages are, they've had time to regroup and rearm themselves. Will they be a more considerable fighting force in the south? I think the Israelis have said, they've killed 5,000 of a 25,000 strong brigade?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Israelis were even amazed, if we can use this term, about I'm not going to say the facility, but about their success in the northern part. But in the southern part, it's going to be a completely different story. We know that they are underground. We know that there are more tunnels. And Hamas fighters are to be respected. They're good. They know what they're doing, and they're more determined than ever. Arguably, the real war is about to start.
Yeah, because I don't get the sense, do you, Michele, that there hasn't been fighting in the tunnels, but presumably that is what they're looking at, isn't it? If they're going after them, then they have to fight this war underground.
We also have to keep in mind, just to answer your question, that well, we don't know how many kilometers are there, but even Hamas said 500, which is larger, bigger than the London Tube. And therefore, that is going to be very complicated. They have stored weapons. They have stored all sorts of again, ammunition, food, medicines. They are ready to resist. And as the Israelis bogged down in a war, in a tunnel war, unfortunately, we are expecting a much more ferocious fighting taking place with loads and loads of casualties on both sides. I told you, it's not looking good.
No, it doesn't bode well, does it? Dr. Michele Groppi, thank you very much for your thoughts.